Are you ready, sir? All right. Please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
You and I are probably the only ones up here old enough to remember the Linder God.
The first item on the agenda this evening will be to go through the consent agenda that contains the minutes of December 19th regular board meeting, January 10th special board meeting, January bills totaling $1,057,757.67, financial reports, federal program review, health services program review, first reading of MSBA policies and procedures, and the first reading of summer school, which were all included in your packets.
Are you gonna go straight down those? Because I do have a question on the summer school one.
Go away, sir.
Huh?
Go ahead with your
Have we
question.
always done it this way?
We have had a consent agenda with numerous items in them.
No, I'm talking about summer school.
Oh, no, sir.
No, it'll be quite different. This is a proposal to, and I will report, after Ms. Jacoby reports, I'll talk about summer school more specifically, but the short of it is that we are going to open it up to a lot more students, try to incentivize it to get them to participate, and also try to make it appealing for our staff to want to teach it on a
I was
larger
gonna say, we
scale.
can't do this with our staff because, I mean, we've always done summer school as a unit. I always looked forward to it
Yeah.
and did it, so.
Yeah, and it'll still be with our staff. It's just that we would have curriculum resources and things provided. It would take a lot of the lesson planning off of them. And I believe we'll be able to pay them a little bit better and probably do it on a 4-day week.
All right.
And again, this is just a first reading, so there will be plenty of time to come back to this later.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions?
Do you have any questions on any of this? Jack, did you have any questions on this one?
Any questions,
Yeah.
pardon me, on any of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Jack's got questions on it, so.
On the receipts thing, there's interest income of $1,033,000. Where did we get that much interest income?
So the interest, your money on the bank has a return of about 5% right now on money sitting in the bank, and so that's a return in interest. In fact, we just about a month ago had bookkeeping look into what our rates were versus competition, and found that we're pretty competitive with a 5% return on our money in the bank right now.
For how long a period of time was this?
I do not recall the term of how long it's locked in or anything of that. I think it is variable with the market, but I don't know what terms.
Okay, one other question. In going down the receipts, there's 14 fundraisers. One of the things in one of our audit was those fundraisers were, here's what we earned, but they were not reconciling with how much it cost to put on that fundraiser to know if they were making a profit or not. Were they making a profit, or did they all make profits, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So through that risk assessment process we had in the fall, that was noted there too, and I think it may have also been by the state auditor's report. So with the fundraising forms that are turned in now, we've asked that they file and keep records of how much they project earnings to be, and then how much earnings actually were. So 1 year from now, when those fundraisers request again, we will know the profitability of each fundraiser, and that's on file now.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any more questions?
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any more questions or concerns? All those in favor, please say aye of approval of
Aye.
opinion. Any opposed or abstaining? Ms. Lance is also joining us via phone, so there may be a slight lag on her voting, and I will try to wait just a few minutes for her on that. Excuse me.
I don't know if you heard aye, Brian.
Thank you. Moving down to the adoption of the agenda for the remainder of the meeting with no additions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Abstain or opposed? Public comments. I'll pause for a brief couple of moments and see if we have anyone here that would like to give a public comment, and allow Dr. Meyer to take her seat as she's arriving. Dr. Meyer, when you're settled, we are on public comments, so I'm just giving everyone a few moments, and there are no additions to the agenda when you get to that. Seeing no comments, I will move on to the superintendent report to start for the evening.
All right, good evening, everybody. So a few things to go through this evening, though I think it'll be pretty streamlined and straightforward. I'm going to talk about just a few things from our governance plan and CSIP. I've got to highlight a few things, and I'll tell you that I'm sort of setting the stage here. Ms. Jacoby, our Director of Teaching and Learning, is going to follow my report, and I have a few things I'll report before and after her, but I'm excited to talk about teaching and learning, student achievement, where we are as a district, kind of from a 10,000-foot view. And what I'm really excited about is what our plans are and our goals, and how we're going to specifically work towards those goals with what I think is a pretty encouraging position for a pretty great staff, great instructional coaches, and Ms. Jacoby certainly does a great job too. So you're going to see some aggressive things. This is probably I believe the first time that we've gotten into the weeds, if you will, gotten into the smaller details of our governance plan and how it impacts teaching and learning. Now, I know that a lot of that's really small. I'm not going to read it all to you, and I don't expect you to read it either, but I'm going to tell you what that highlighted section says. For people online, it's a lot easier to see, I know. But it says that under CSIP goal number 14, we will explore the possibility of expanding early childhood education, which is something that's on the agenda for an action item tonight, the discussion of the proposed early childhood center at the former Butterfield property. And one thing that our governance plan says we will do is that KOF scores, and I'll explain some of these acronyms as needed, but KOF scores will be reported and compared annually to compare district progress in kindergarten readiness. That's a very timely goal that who would have known when you all approved our CSIP back in late June, how pertinent that goal would be. But I'll explain a little bit of what that means. KOF is your kindergarten observation form. And this was introduced by Ms. Jacoby, who's in her second year in that role with the district. She had the idea of administering this, and this happened the first time this fall of this school year. It's also a requirement under MSIP 6 that we do so. So some of what we found from the KOF this fall was after it was planned, administered, and disaggregated in the first weeks of kindergarten this year, which took a lot of people. Of course, the teachers administered it, but it takes a village, as they say. It had to be planned for, it had to be supported by our instructional coaches, and then people with the time to do it had to break that data down. They established a baseline this year, and that baseline is something that we can be really transparent with the Board of Education and with the public to say, this is where we are at Marshall Public Schools, and then set specific goals for where we want and need to be. And that is an accountability that I think our new CSIP does a great job of making really clear to the public. We found this year that most students are not coming from, and that it would be with the group we tested this year, they're not coming from any pre-K learning environment, meaning that they're coming from home straight to school and kindergarten without a pre-K transition for most of our current students who were tested. The implications of that are, first of all, as we know from our governance plan work up to this point, that a lot of children in our community aren't getting services. We can tell that in other data, like the large number of not potty trained students. We can see that in the language barriers, which are at unprecedented levels. And all of that information, when we start looking at it scientifically, has implications for what we do as a school district to help our children to learn better. Our baseline for this year is that 36% of our students were kindergarten ready. according to where we would hope to get them. And how do you get them more kindergarten ready, early childhood education? So those services that have been falling short in terms of availability, those long waiting lists, anything we as a district can do to help them would be really beneficial. The other academic goal that you have in our district CSIP and governance plan is goal number 15, which establishes a plan to address student achievement. There are 3 things that we have identified in our governance plan specific to the data that we see in our district APR, which is basically Marshall Public Schools report card. When we looked at that, we said, okay, what are the greatest things of need, and what can we do to impact those areas of greatest need? And I'm going to make that bigger for you to see. The first thing is to establish a baseline in 2023, this school year, and seek to increase MSIP 6 points annually by 2% on the ACT, work keys, and placement exams. So building administration has been working this year to create building improvement plans specific to goals such as this that apply to their building. And as a district, we're working to embed that into our evaluation practices, not to scare anybody or be mean to our teachers, because we have great teachers, but just to do things with intention and to help support them specific to the district goals. So we're trying to vertically align it from top to bottom and offer really good support. The second thing that was named in that goal of our CSIP is that we will maintain or increase graduation rates in our district. And we decided to identify that from a 2019 level by 2%. Why 2019? It's pre-COVID. So everything nationally that Ms. Jacoby is going to present to you tonight is absolutely impacted by COVID-19. And she's done a lot of work to put together a lot of information. We're trying to set goals that are, yes, dealing with where we are post-COVID, but also working to get where we were before COVID ever happened, because that's what's in the best interest of our students, and we think that there's some good ways that we can do that. The third thing that was on there, I said I'd make it bigger. I should have made it a lot bigger. I apologize for that. The district will maintain or increase ELA scores, that's English Language Arts, in 3rd grade by 5%. We identified 3rd grade because it's the first time we get a score from the state level on how our students are performing, so it's a starting point to reflect on all of the education practices prior to 3rd grade. To say that we'll increase it by 5% in the number of proficient and decrease below basic by 2% was a target we created based on our APR, the scores that we see where Marshall is. We thought this was kind of a building block, if you will. If they're having trouble with English Language Arts, then math and science and all those other things that build upon their literacy will be a struggle. So we're setting goals that will specifically chip away at low APR performance and start to increase it. It doesn't happen overnight, it takes years, but when we start reflecting in this way and we start investing in early childhood and kindergarten performance, we should, over the course of the next few years or years to come, start to see that increase. Now this 3rd grade year, when we get our baseline, will that increase this year? Probably not. It's not likely, not from what we've seen from COVID. And all the time that students across our country spend at home and out of the classroom, we probably won't see it increase. Nationally, we've seen it decrease, but that's the baseline we establish, and we think we can be really aggressive in years that follow to make these strides. The last, I believe, CSIP goal number 15 that ties specifically to academic achievement is to establish a plan to address student achievement through effective teaching and learning, and it's titled there, Tie Evaluations to Academic Success. Now that can sound scary to our teachers, and let me tell you why I don't want anyone to be scared. From the principals to the superintendents to the work we have ahead with the teachers, when we say we're going to tie evaluations to academic success, it does not mean we're going to scare everybody away. We're not going to be mean to them. We're not going to hit them over the head with anything, because they're doing great work. We're going to tie student performance to part of the conversation and evaluation process. And when we set goals and we don't make them, we're going to talk about why we didn't make them and work through how we will the next time. It is not going to be a scary process, though naturally and realistically, teachers will probably initially say, whoa, that sounds scary. We are not going to do it to be mean and scary. We're just going to do it to teach with intention, with specific goals. The way it's worded in highlighted area there, I don't know if I make this. Yeah. It says that we will, with a strong evaluation system like NEE, which is the Network for Educator Effectiveness, that ties teacher and administrator evaluation to student data. What is NEE? The district is looking to adopt and implement the Network for Educator Effectiveness in this next annual budget proposal as a replacement to the current evaluation system that we have. It comes with nationally recognized training for administrators and staff, which I think is one of the most valuable pieces of it. As Ms. Jacoby and I have looked into it, is that administrators get trained on how to go evaluate a teacher, how to give good feedback. When you're a principal who taught social studies like I used to, and you're evaluating music and art and science, you sometimes don't know how to give them the best feedback. This is going to train our administrators in how to give feedback and support to teachers that teachers find valuable. And we'll know if it's valuable or not because the teachers will survey and evaluate their administrators to say, did you help me? Was what you told me to do useful to me? Did it help students learn? NEE was created about 12 years ago, and no district thus far has transitioned to that evaluation model and not seen increases in the APR of their district. Again, what's the key to it? The objective evaluation process, the excellent training for staff and for administrators, and that it's tied to student engagement and academic understanding of the pupils. In other words, and I really think this is kind of like the great invention of sliced bread. It's so simple, but until somebody thought of it, right? It doesn't support and evaluate staff on just how well they taught. There are tons and tons of wonderful teachers. It focuses on, okay, you taught wonderfully. Did the students hear you? Were they engaged? Did they learn? And so we reflect on measure on student growth, student engagement, and that is where a great teacher doesn't operate alone, but in tandem with the students that they're teaching, with goals in mind that they hope for them to achieve. Once we all get trained on it and used to it, I really think people will find it very useful. I've been a part of transitioning to it in previous districts. First time was as a teacher myself, and I found it scary, and I didn't like the idea of it or the way it sounded as I just described it to all of you. And once I was on that track as even a teacher, I felt that it changed the way I taught. Prior to the NEE concept, we've always focused on evaluating on how you're teaching, but we didn't tie that also to how the students are learning. And if they're not connected, you can be doing wonderful, but if the whole class is, not with you, that's an important thing to reflect on. So I'm going to stop there for now. The last thing on summer school I want to talk about after Ms. Jacoby comes up and presents a little bit further about where our data is. I just wanted to set up and explain to you what our goals are as Ms. Jacoby gets ready to present to you on the data of the district. Any questions for me before we do that?
Okay, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm going to be following up Mr. Pettit's presentation on, you saw the specific goals that we have set. And we have also started working on building specific goals, so that process started. We had a good session with that. And so within this presentation, what we're going to be looking at is some statistical data. So we're going to be looking at our MAP and our EOC scores for the spring. We're going to look at some graduation rate, what that looked like the last couple of years and then this last year. We're going to be looking at our iReady scores for our beginning of the year assessment and our middle of the year assessment, so we can look at that progress that we've had from this fall. And then I've got some national data in there and also our state data for the MAP and EOC. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll get into some specific action items that we really started last spring really looking at, and then we've implemented into this school year. We get that data back from the state, usually it's in August, and so you take that and then you don't have that group of kids. And so I will speak specifically, the state is actually doing something that's awesome this year. When we set our state testing window, we will get a 10-day Yeah, a 10-day turnaround on some of that data, and it's going to be really quick. So I found that out on a call I was on last week, and I was like, that's really awesome. Now, again, that'll just be preliminary data. We won't be able to, but we as a district can look through some of that. And so what we did last fall was we got that data. Last fall, I was new to this position. I've been in the district a long time, but then we all kind of sat down and said, okay, what are some things we need to work on for this next school year? And so we will talk at the end of that presentation on some of those specific items. There's some really awesome things that teachers are doing and that we've implemented. So I will try to go quick. I promise. There is a lot in this presentation, though. Before we start, I sat down, several weeks ago to kind of get this together. And when I did, I was thinking about students. Okay, I mean, I have kids in the district. A lot of you have kids in the district. A lot of you sitting out here have kids in the district. I was thinking about all of them. And I think before we really look at this data here in a little bit, and the national data and the state data and all of that, I think we need to talk about giving grace to our students. It's Mental Health Week. I'm wearing blue. It was blue and PJ Day. Didn't wear my PJs here, so. But I think we need to really think about what our students have, been through, our staff too. And I just kind of sat down and put a timeline together where we were in the spring. I'm not going to read through all of that, but you can see that, what that fall looked like when we came back. We were on AMI X, which is what was approved for COVID. It's not, we don't have that anymore, but for the AMI X, that was COVID in and out, able to do that and do the instruction that way. And so that entire fall and a lot of home visits, I did several myself, checking on students, on their well-being. It's just that there was a lot. We were back in school then that spring, but there was a lot of kids still in and out on quarantine. It just left and right all over the place. We were, looking at all of that. So we get back this last fall. Here we go. We did have some illness still around last fall. I know it's hard to think back to that, but it was just, last fall. And we did have a school that did close 3 days due to an illness still. We were going, here we were, and then you know what happened in November too when you keep the high school in mind. So we did have a fire at the high school in November. So I just giving grace to people. I know we've set really great goals, but we need to also reflect on some of that. And so I don't know that, I really felt like I wanted to include that when I sat down and put all this together. It's important. Okay. So now I'm getting into kind of the task force. So we started some of that work last year. We went through, we discussed data collaboratively. We identified some priorities there, some action steps. I just included a picture from one of our sessions this year that we set down. We've worked on specific building goals and action steps that we'll be doing as a whole district, but then also at specific buildings. Data, this is going to be very heavily focused on data and progress monitoring. As with anything, when you set a goal for anything in life, whether, whatever it is, you're setting those targets where you're checking that along the way. And so that's what we've been working on. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. This is our ELA data from last spring. It covers grades 3 through 8. This is our Marshall Public School students. It also includes the Great Circle residential students that we had before that did close, unfortunately, but it does include those students as well that were instructed at Great Circle. So it's a combination of both. As you can see there, and we'll get to the state data once we get through all of ours, you can see pretty quickly why we set third grade right there as a goal we were going to focus on. And if you really think about third grade, well, we have a lot falling in our basic and our below basic right now. And our goal, is to get to proficient. But what we need to do is we need to right now meet the students where they're at, and that's what we're doing, and then we're working and looking at those prerequisite skills and building on that. If you think about third grade, that specifically was mentioned in Mr. Pettit's presentation. They were called out, it would have been in kindergarten, okay? So their kindergarten year would have missed the rest of that kindergarten year, went into first grade. They were out a lot of that first semester, and then in and out quarantine, the second semester. And then second grade, they would have been in seat last year. But kindergarten and first grade is essential for those foundational reading skills. And so looking at that, we've done some things to kind of tier and what we're looking at within that, which really impacts all of those students. So I just kind of wanted you to see where we landed on these, and then we'll have some more conversations as the presentation goes on. The next slide goes through our math data. Math across, you'll see this on the NAEP assessments here in a little bit that I have for our national data, which actually saw the first decrease in math scores across the nation ever. And so we'll get into that here at the end. But again, we are heavily here in the basic category and the below basic. And so we've set some things in motion. We do have, we're working on fluency at our elementary through Reflex. We are looking at some of those tier 1 resources. Next year, math will be up to review for our resources. And so some of that's coming, and some of those review cycles as far as tier 1 resources and curriculum as we work through some of those things. So again, common themes there that we're seeing within those. The next one is science data there. Now, actually, if you guys look at our science data here, we actually, in proficient at grades 5 and 8, we have more proficient for our science and in that category than our math and our ELA. So they are implementing some things at the middle school, and I'll get into that here at the end, that we've implemented for those in the curriculum and that we're working with, and that certainly helped. Okay, we're getting into the EOC data next. So we have ELA, we have math, science, and social studies here, government, that we give. If you look here, the heaviest hit that we really saw is in our math, in our algebra, and you can look at those percentages there. That's common among where we saw the greatest drop, even as a nation, in our scores for math. And COVID, they actually have said, that was. Why? I don't know. And so we've got some work. This is our baseline data that we're working from. You guys probably don't remember this pre-COVID, but we had like 3 different years of 3 different assessments. Do you guys remember that with the MAP and EOC? We couldn't really compare them because they were all different assessments. And then the year that we were finally able to have that, then we got out for COVID. So we do have some baseline data here that now we can work with and move forward. So, and I'm super excited that the state has set that to where we'll get that data back really quick within 10 business days after our window closes, because that can start some work that we can look at this summer. The district overall performance here, I have ELA, math, and science, so this includes our students, any Great Circle residential students that were there last year. So this is everybody all the way up 3 through 12 that took a MAP or an EOC. Again, we have a lot of students in that basic category there. And you're going to see here in a little bit the state. We're seeing kind of those same trends in the state as well. Before I get into some of the state and the national data, I want to go through some graduation rate data here. I didn't bring any glasses, so let me get a little bit closer. So in 2020, that was the year that we had 1920 school year. If you look, we were at, Marshall was at 87.78%. We took a dip in 21. We went to 86.27. And then last school year, we had 85.71. So you can see why we have set that as a goal. We've went down a percentage point basically each year-ish. We're close to the state, but we're not at that state level with our graduation rate yet. And so, we would like to meet that, exceed that, and got some things going for that too. They've got the Mo options there that they're working on within that program. It has a test and it has requirements too for our at-risk students that they have been implementing and doing. And so they're working on specific building plans to meet these. Again, I'm doing, I think just kind of Mr. Pettit said it earlier, a 10,000-foot view. When we meet and we talk about all these things, We really are getting down into specifics. I mean, the reports that we can pull, we don't have 8 hours tonight to do that, but, you know, that is being done. State data. If you look here for ELA, and you can see here, it starts here where we have the below basic is the blue, basic is orange, the proficient, and then we have the advanced. If you look especially in those grades 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and any of those in the middle there that we're looking at, they're basic, they're seeing kind of the same trends we are, where they've got a lot of kids falling in those basic categories. So that does include all the way up through English 2. Now math. Okay, so remember those orange kind of bars and percents there. Okay, so math here, what do you notice the big difference between that is they're below basic in math is quite a bit larger when you get there, and they're basic. So they're seeing kind of the same trends we are, that their math is getting a harder hit there than their ELA. And I wanted to get this on here so you could kind of see, compare to the rest of the state of Missouri, and we'll get some of the national ones here in a little bit. Science. So we have grade 5 and 8 in biology. Notice that little asterisk next to the physical science. That's an optional EOC assessment. Some districts give it. We are looking at our biology scores. Actually, and I have my notes here, our science scores were, especially at grades 5 and 8, we had more proficient than we did in our ELA and our math. And so I went through and I kind of wrote down. So for example, let's just look at grade 5 there. So grade 5, we had 34, let's go from the bottom. We had 38% in the below basic for grade 5, and they had 27. So we did have a larger number there. But our basic is about the same. We had 34%, they had 32%. We had 22% proficient, and they had 29. So kind of seeing some of those same trends. For biology now, we had a larger number in below basic in biology. We had 22% for the state, and ours was at 42%, whereas our basic was 46%, and their basic was in the 42%. So our basic trending sort of the same, but we don't have as many of the advanced and proficient students in that category. But, seeing and looking at some of that movement. So I think it's important when we look at our data that, we look at that state data as well. Let's go into, and I love data. You all know this about me. I was a former math teacher, so this stuff is fun to me, but maybe not to everybody, but anyway, I really wanted to include the national data. I have the NAEP results, but this is actually taken from the Curriculum Associates, which is the platform that we use with iReady. That is our benchmark data that we use. If you look at their math improvement, we're taking a little bit longer here to recover from this. Let's look at, those percentages are hard to see, guys. I apologize for that. Sometimes you get that on there. But look here at our grade, look at grade 3, for example, and grade 4. You can see that this grade, the blue bar on the far left is pre-COVID, and then the other two are the years following. So we're not at, and this is based on 11 million students took this assessment. So this is based on that data. And so we're not there, and we're not recovering to those levels yet. And then I will show you, this is reading. Same thing, based on that data from those students that took that, those 11 million, and then you're looking here at the historical, the spring, and then in the spring of 22. So we're not, now if you look some grades in the reading, like look at grades, look at grade 5 there. They're pretty close. Again, this is based on benchmark data. This is not state testing or anything like that. This is the benchmark testing with iReady. I thought this was interesting. This is based off the NAEP. This is for students, and they were grade 9, age 9. If you look here, this is the results that just came out this fall. We had the largest drop in reading since 1990. And then if you look there, there's a first ever drop in mathematics ever. What's going on? So anyway, I just think that's really important whenever you're looking through all of that, that when we look at our data and we're keeping some of that in mind. I started that, giving grace to our students. But, we've all been through a lot, and we're setting very aggressive goals. But, there's so much more that we're doing here with students. I kind of got some of that at the end of the presentation too. That's important to know. Okay, so action steps. I'm getting into some specific things now. So right here, we did a presentation. I did that with you with the MTSS group in October. Kind of talked to you a little bit about iReady. We recognized that we really needed another benchmark that we could use. And it's beginning of the year data, middle of the year data, and then we will have a spring that we will also do. Everything from our training sessions and everything they're seeing say they usually see the biggest growth between January and April when we take our last one. So we're super excited to really look at that and see that. But in this specific example, this is reading. And do you guys see the bottom bars there? That is the fall that we took. So we took that within the first four weeks of school or so. And then we took the second one right before we left for break. So if you focus on the red, and those are our students that we kind of consider at risk, they're 2 or more grade levels below. We went from 58% in the fall in that category, and if you look, then we went to, reading, 51% to 45%. So we're moving kids to the left, and that's what we want to do. Our yellow in this example, if you look here for our reading, it stayed, but that's because we're moving those kids over. So when we went into the green, we went from 17% to 23%. So those kids, even though that looks like it's the same, they're moving over. So we can pull some really cool reports with this. Again, this is just one of, I don't even know how many that we can pull and do. I mean, it's pretty incredible. We can look at projected proficiency, and we can look through a lot of that within this data. But I wanted you to see what that looks like, and that we are moving and we are showing growth. I can't wait till we see the spring data. It's going to be really cool. We are putting a lot of work into some things this year, and so the teachers and everybody should be really, really proud of themselves. So now we will get into math. Okay, math. So math, same process. We took that in the fall, and then you can see the winter is the most recent at the top. It's a little bit larger. Math, we went from 58% to 39%. We want to see those numbers drop. Okay, we obviously want to get those kiddos that are at risk out of those, 2 or more grade levels behind and get those moved over. Our yellow, we went from 35% to 46%. But even though that number increased, remember, we're moving those kiddos over, and we're moving them over towards proficiency. And then we went in the green from 7% to 14%. And that was actually less than a semester, because we took it in September, and then we took the other one in December. So we'll take our third one in April. So we can't wait to get in there and look at some of that. I just wanted you to see some right now data. We get that state data back, and sometimes it's here we go and here we have it, but then we don't have those students in front of us anymore, and they've moved on to the next grade level. We can really look at that. We can, the social studies and science is embedded within this too, within the ELA. And so we can really start looking at prerequisites. We can get down into a standard. We can look at a student and say, hey, you know, we're struggling here. And we can go look back and vertically look at a standard and say, oh, okay, well, it's this skill. This is what we're missing out on, and this is why we're struggling with it. And we can get them help and help them in that tier 2 time and really get them to understand it. And then see great work, and we see some of that. So I can't wait to let you guys know this spring and get that third one to you, and you can see that growth. In this slide, I just wanted you to kind of have I know we went through this, but we use this 3 times a year. I already spoke to that. It is cross-curricular. The standards mastery reports and the progress growth monitoring we have within this system is great. Our standards mastery, we can actually pull a specific priority standard, and we can look at that. So we've said, okay, for this grade level, we have these priority standards, and we could look at those and look at those prerequisite skills. And then this gives us some benchmark data for our MTSS. Remember, this is not the only data point that we use, okay? We use a triangulation of data. I included just a specific example from some of our tiered assessments here at the bottom. We've got this is probably a 5 or 6 page document, isn't it? And I snipped you one picture of it where we've lined out what assessments that we're doing to help in each of those tiers. So we use a triangulation of data to help us. Some other really awesome things that we're doing. This year, we did some data training at the beginning of the year. There's been 2 sessions on that with our teachers. We've also had some data training just at a leadership level as well. So go back to where I was talking to you about the early, where those 3rd graders, we're looking at them, and we're also looking at our K-1-2 students. We're doing module and literacy training in the science of reading, and we are also doing letters. We had 5 teachers go through that last year before it was a big state push that we wanted teachers going through this. This year, the state is trying to send several teachers through it, but we had 5 that went through that, and it is pretty similar to a college course. It's a lot of work, and they are absolutely amazing for going through that. We had 5 go through. We have 29 teachers going through that this year, and they are coming to us to do that. We got them booked last year. The teachers don't have to travel like many districts are having to do, and so that's really awesome. We're gonna have cohorts going through that next year. I told her, I said, the calendar's not out yet, but save us some dates. But, so we're getting that going. It's great. And the module training, we have that also going on as well on the same days that we have the letters. So super, super awesome stuff. We have our ELT, one of our elementary EL teachers going through that, actually our only elementary EL teacher, to help us with her students that she also works with. That's important as well that she go through that training, and so we're working on that. Mr. Pettit also spoke to the KOF. That was, there is a kindergarten entry assessment requirement, but they give you a few choices on what you can pick. What we sat down as a group and did last spring was we looked at the tools that they had as options, and we decided to go with what DESE built and what they are piloting and what they are training on. So that Office of Early Childhood, we connected with them, got some training. That was early August, I believe, that they went through that. And the kindergarten teachers gave that assessment. It is the first year for that. And that's where we got a lot of that data out of there that Mr. Pettit spoke to. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be good. Something I really wanted to mention with that. I've connected with Chelsea from our Parents as Teachers. She has already, I touched base with her today. She's already went to the area preschools. She's taking up some of those home preschools. And she's going through, actually Gina put a list together for us, and of everything that we had on that KOF, and she's going through that and sharing some of that with them. And she said she's just had a lot of really thankful people that we were doing that and sharing that. So thank you to her, and thank you to Gina for getting that list together for us. We appreciate that. I'm trying to go quick. There's really good things. I want to share it. Our Tier 1 alignment and our scope and sequence of our priority standards and learning targets, that's something that our teachers have been working on in grade levels and departments this year. And that is aligning our Tier 1 instruction, our core curriculum, we're looking at that, we're going through that. It's done, but we're going through and saying, okay, based on some of this that we're seeing, or based on what the state says our priority standards are, do we need to move some things around? And so we've been going through some of that. We were a district that set our own priority standards before the state released them. And so there's been some alignments with that. It's been really great work. And I will share that work with you this spring. I think we're set in April to do that. So same with our assessments. We've got some reading success plans that are going to be coming out next year. And that's aligned with the Senate Bill 681. And I tell you what, we are doing some great work here, and a lot of that work we started early before, and we've been meeting with a lot of literacy specialists, and I'm super excited about that, and that we're ahead of the game on all of that stuff. And so we've been working on a lot of those assessments within that, so. Okay, something that I did want to mention is the DESE Elite blocks. That is something that we have implemented in ELA, social studies, and science pretty heavily at our middle school. And I really think that has helped our science scores. So we've implemented that, so they'll have their curriculum and implemented that maybe within a unit, and they're also implementing it in some of their assessments. So DESE has put out a lot of these blocks and said, okay, within these learning targets, within this curriculum, these are what we suggest, to teach and how you do that, and we've implemented a lot of that. Project Lead the Way and Gateways through 6th grade. We've talked about this already, but we have that for our science. Those are based on the NGSS standards. Those are the next generation science standards. And so it's really cool. A lot of the principals will share a lot of that stuff out on our Facebook, and the kids really love it. And so that is aligned with those standards. And so that's hitting us. It is a supplement as far as it's a resource within our science curriculum that we're using. And it's been really great. We are using Pathways to help with Tier 2 support at our grades 5 through 8. So Mr. Reed, we've been working on that at the middle school, and Ms. Gass, our instructional coach over there. And that Pathways is a part of iReady, and it's an extra piece to help with some of that Tier 2 support. So we will look at that and the outcomes of that at the end of the year, and kind of evaluate that on how we think that went. We continue to do our Terrific 13 strategies. That's based on the Learn Like a Champion and the Artisan themes. We've had those for a while, but that is something we still focus on at induction with new staff. We do that within when our principals pop in for observations, when the coaches are meeting with teachers, when principals are meeting with teachers. And so that is just something that we have continued. That is not anything new, but I did want to put that on there because it does really focus on some good teaching and learning strategies for the teachers. The high school is implemented a test prep on Thursday, and what they've done is we got into their standards, and we have identified a cross-curricular standard, and we are working on building that through their AL time to where it's helping in those Tier 2 interventions. And so that's not something new that they're starting up. And that cross-curricular standard was the one that was most tested. When we went through and we dug through all the data, it was tested, boom, 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 multiple times. So that's a cross-curricular thing that we're looking at across the board. And so they are starting that. Ms. Dobbins has worked really hard on helping kind of get that going. Something that we're gonna, and I already spoke to the Mo options kind of that they're working on, but something that we're gonna do at the end of this school year, and I promise I'm almost done, you guys know I love to talk. At the end of this school year, we are gonna look at our 8th grade iReady scores, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna really kind of focus on where those gaps are, and then that's gonna help us with where we can start looking at for that next school year. Because really the state's getting ready to release this new thing where we get some scores within 10 days, preliminary. But we've never had anything quite like this where we can look at this and do this. And it's immediate and it's good and everybody's jumping all in and it's great. And so that's something that we've set and that we're gonna look at the end of the school year and have some collaboration between the middle school and the high school. So I know that was a lot and there's probably a ton of things that I didn't even think of that I didn't put on there, but I'm just really, really proud of everybody. We have a baseline finally. We've got some work to do. You can see that's, I don't know who that is. That's not me. You can see that across the board, that it's not just here. We're seeing that too at the state and in the NAEP and the nation results too. This might seem really weird on this last slide, and then I promise I'm done. But I did want to I focused heavily in the beginning about giving grace to our students. But we do so much more here than just focusing on that data that I just showed you, okay? I just included, and I didn't even tell Mr. Reed he was on here until he got here. I was in the assemblies that he did on digital citizenship with trying to help our kids kind of through that. We do so much more than just going through our curriculum in our math or ELA or whatever. We're also trying to build up good citizens and help our students too, and to get through things. And I also included from our SPS, these are some lessons that they're doing at SPS in January. Identifying traits to make friendships grow and traits that make friendships droop, and they work through practicing empathy and how they would feel in someone else's shoes. And I just feel like a lot of people do a really good job here with so many different areas, and I wanted to end on that note. I know that seems super random on that slide, but we do so much more here than just looking at some of those data. And I know I had to focus heavily on data because we are measuring by that, but there's some also really great things going on too. So do you have any questions to me? I tried to go quick, I'm sorry. Probably a lot of questions, or you can email me.
I'll follow up with you with a few questions, but I won't take time to talk about those currently, so.
Okay, thank you guys, I appreciate it.
And please don't ever apologize for being long. Student achievement is very important to us, so
Yeah.
hearing those things are very important for us, so thank you.
Thank you all.
That was a good job, Laura.
If I may just follow her up with just a few last things kind of in that vein, Mr. President. So I want to say, first of all these months we've been working on a lot of things here at Marshall Public Schools with the Board of Education directing us to create the new CSIP. I think the community deserves to know where we are, certainly academically. But I'll say, as we've done all that research and all the reports that we brought to the board, one thing that I want to say really loud and clear is that I am extremely proud of all the people that we have here in this district. When it comes to Grace Durham, Laura Jacoby, our instructional coaches, our administrators, our teachers, the people, every single stone we've turned over, we see people working really hard. We see them that they care a lot. I was proud of Ms. Jacoby that she didn't tear up as she presented tonight, because if you think about what educators have been through COVID-19, it is monumental, and you can't stop and look at data alone and not think about the whole child and all the things that we are doing in public education. But at the same time, we certainly do have a responsibility to report to you and the public about where we are as a district. I have never been more encouraged, though, or genuinely more proud to be a part of so many great people doing a lot of great things. Some things I will just really quickly say that I've vetted for being amazing is that as we look at national and state level data and we see the fact that students have regressed in our nation post COVID-19, what it guarantees us is that there is no substitute for the great people in the classroom that teach our students. And when we did this great experiment of sending them home, they didn't fare as well. And that speaks volumes to the professionals we have in public education. I think that too often gets overlooked in all the cross sections of data. That's the greatest proof ever that public educators are making a difference. Our benchmarks and our iReady data, I always have had hesitation and pause when a district focuses too much on benchmarks as opposed to what the state report card says. iReady has, in every instance so far that I've questioned it, shown more rigor than the state level assessments. And the fact that we see early results showing that students are moving means that everybody's efforts were certainly not in vain. I think the last thing I would say is that when we're looking at this, we are dealing with students in all grades, of course, that are lower than where they were. But I'm really proud of Marshall Public Schools and the Board of Education that we are investing in early childhood. We're investing in kindergarten preparedness, that we have people that take the initiative on their own to go out to other preschool programs and say, hey, this is where our kiddos need to be. I just couldn't be more proud to be a part of all these great people. I think they're doing good things, and I think that report is going to just keep improving, and we're not going to hide any of it. We're going to be honest and open, and we're going to deal with things where they are, and that's how we're going to improve. Last thing, for a case in point, I want to end with, you had your first reading of Summer Journey 2023. You know, students go home for the summer, and one thing that we have lacked through COVID-19 is instructional time in the classroom. I think we have an opportunity at Marshall Public Schools to capitalize on summer school, to incentivize students' attendance. And the proposal that I'm giving to you guys for summer school, and I believe next month I'll probably ask for you all to vote on it, but here's some details of it. I believe if we do 4 weeks at 4 days a week of summer school for all students K through 8, in this program, with high school being as it has been in the past, largely credit recovery and sort of outside of the program, if we offer a $100 gift card to every student in grades K through 8 for perfect attendance to come, that they will be pretty motivated to come to summer school, to take part in what we're teaching them, and it'll be fun and it'll be engaging. I also believe that if we are able to, and some of this I'm working out the details, I'm hopeful that next month I'll say we'll be able to feed them breakfast and lunch for free, and that we will pre and post test those students and give a report to the Board of Education to say, did summer school impact them academically and have a positive impact on their learning? And then lastly, and most importantly, for those teachers who have worked so hard through all these COVID years and this school year, to incentivize for them to come help us and work summer school, paying them, I'm going to propose more than we had previously, taking it up to $4,000 per teacher and continuing the regularly hourly rate pay for the classified staff that would help. I hope that they would say, okay, that sounds okay, or we're going to even offer it up to teachers and say, if you only want to do 2 weeks, you split it in half with another person, it'll be $2,000 per teacher, and then you can go on summer vacation. I hope that we will get enough staff. I'm really confident that with the gift cards for students, that they will come. And the last thing that I think will be appealing to the staff that come is to say all the curriculum will be delivered. There's going to be a room full of all the curriculum, all the rockets and fun STEM-based experiments and things that we do. And you don't have to stay up late every night planning for it. A lot of the curriculum is going to be provided for you. It will cost more, but in the end, I think it'll also make more. I have early projections that the district will actually profit from this endeavor. Not a great deal. It's not going to be about the profit, but I do not anticipate a cost to the district. I am certain that we will cover the cost for what it takes to pay our staff, and we may even be a little bit in the black, which is nice, but I'll be fine with breaking even. So that is the proposal as I'm sending it out to you. We have an initial contract. I have some numbers and figures that I received today, and so there'll be more to talk about on that, but I think that's another great opportunity. COVID's over. Summer school can be in session, and I hope that we could send all those staff and students home before the last week of June if we do this. And that is the end of my report, sir.
Thank you. We will move to Mr. Ringy.
Okay, thank you. Tonight I just wanted to hit on some highlights of some things that are coming up, some things we've been discussing, and just kind of what's been going on with some of our facilities lately. So some happenings that I want to go over tonight. Number one, and probably the biggest one that we've been talking about, discussing, is our options for transportation, to try to put in a tiered, staggered start times for the 2023-24 school year. Some noteworthy facility aspects we have going on without the district, and wellness committee, and getting our classified staff committee set up. So, number one, and I sent to the board here a paper. Sorry it's so small, but that's how I could fit it all onto one. And we'll go over that, are some different options when we go there. Now, I want to remind everybody that this is very rough. This is a rough draft. We are in the beginning stages of looking at this. We just really wanted to get it out there and start having these discussions to see what we can do, how we can help our kids, how we can help the community. So the first thing, why do we want to do tiered starts or staggered starts, and what actually are they on? Number one is to address the bus driver shortage. The whole state, I think the whole nation, is in a driver shortage. Every town you go to, you're going to see a sign that says hiring bus drivers. And Marshall is no different. This is a problem everywhere, and it's probably not going away. So looking at this, how we're doing it right now, you know, we're right now, and it's probably been the last few years, it's just everybody's hanging on and trying to get by within our bus service. So eventually it's not gonna be sustainable. Things are gonna start falling through. If you watch the news, there's some big districts over at the Kansas side, they're actually doing rolling blackouts in their routes. They have like 20-some routes. I mean, they're bigger than Marshall is. And every day, well, number 2 doesn't go. The next day, number 3 doesn't go because they can't find enough drivers. So it's just everybody's struggling with it. Tiered staggered start times, according in our board policy, it does say that we want to try to make the most efficient routes for our buses and our drivers and financially. And then also from our surveys that we did in the fall, our culture surveys and then with our community forums, things like that. One of the big things that we got was parents would like to see the elementary students and the high school students not on the same bus. I can understand that. Tiered staggered start times would take care of that. Also, with different locations, it would been brought up how parents can get their students to different locations in the morning. If school starts at the same time, schools across town, if you have a high schooler and an elementary schooler, that was a concern for some people. And this could possibly lighten up some of the traffic patterns in town, because I think we've talked about before, when you're running around Marshall from 7:30 to 8, she's pretty full. So hopefully this would help some of that. Okay. So some thoughts to the tiered staggered start. Like I said, we are at the very beginning stages. I'm going to show some of these options, and they're not perfect, and we'll kind of go through those here a little bit. As you look at these options, one of the things and Craig's been working really hard at this, kind of setting some routes up, looking at this, so I appreciate all he's done. But as he starts to plan these routes and these options, these times will shift. And so basically, this is going to vary on the number of buses we run in those options. You'll see there's different number of buses in the routes. Also with the stops. A stop takes 1 to 2 minutes. If you have 20 stops, well, you're looking at 20 plus minutes. So you kind of start thinking about that way. So when we talk about the staggered starts, if the high school starts at 7:30 and an elementary 8:30, you know, which is a little bit later, but the more stops you have, the more separation of that time goes. We would truly like to get that time closer together, and I think it would help, but that's going to require some less stops and more efficiency. And then as we're looking through this, our early childhood and our sped buses will still run standalone. So they really don't get into the equation. We're going to still run those separately. Okay, so I know that's really, really small. That's the sheet you guys have in front of you, sorry. But, well, that's really, really small too, sorry. Hold on.
It's a little bigger.
So this is our current schedule that we're running right now. Basically, everybody's on the same start time. We have 20 general education buses that run in the morning and afternoon. Start time 7:50, 2:58. One of the things too with this is Mr. Pettit, myself, and you know, when we're watching this and observing, especially in the afternoon, we have a lot of kids, especially in our elementaries, that have to wait, and they wait a while, and the teachers have to cases. This, hopefully, if we can get set up, would solve a lot of those problems, where the buses would be there, the kids would walk out of school, get loaded up, and then go. So with this proposal. So this is the current schedule, and then 30, and then they would go, those same buses would go back out and then pick up our K through 5 students, and then bring them in and drop them off in a window from about 8:25 to 8:30, and their school would start at 8:35. Option B is really close to the same. This narrows down the buses even more. This would go down from 20 to about 11 to 12 buses that would run. You can see the separation of start times is a little bit farther apart, less buses. They're not going to be able to pick up as many kids as quick. We would definitely change the stop placements throughout town, which Craig's been working on. You know, and avoiding a lot of the dead spots, loops, dead ends, and then we would go from there. And then option C, we would add some more buses back into the routes, 15 to 16, but it gets those times a little bit closer. So that's the one thing we're gonna work on coming in the near future, is to try to narrow the gap. Still have the staggered start or the tiered starting. Start the high school, middle school, it's around 7:30, but try to bump that elementary time up to make it easier on parents. So those are some of the options right now that we're looking at. Like I said, this is very rough, just getting it out there. So what's our next steps of this? We're gonna continue to refine these routes, to see if we can shorten the tier timing. We also have to take care of our employees. We're gonna have to look at how we shuttle employees. If you have a teacher that works at the high school and has elementary kids, and there's that lag time between, we're gonna have to figure out, help that employee, how that student gets over to Spainhour, one of the elementaries from the high school. Explore putting a hub back in if needed, if that will help out. And then also with this, the big thing right now is we want to send out surveys to our staff, and we want to send out surveys to our parents and start getting feedback in some of these areas, and see how we can adjust. I don't want to put a big strain on our community with our parents that, they have to go to work, but we're just gonna have to start working through some of that stuff. Okay, and I'll get to questions. Does anybody have any questions on that right now?
I just had a question about drivers. So right now, we're looking at about 20, and these go down, down to one's 11 to 12 drivers, it looks like, one's about 14 to 16. What's a good magic number for us to look at for drivers?
Depends how many routes we have. It's gonna depend on
Right.
what we go to, on how many route buses we're gonna need.
So
Now,
we're
there's-
struggling to hit 20. Can we hit 18, 16 drivers pretty consistently? That's where I'm going with.
Hopefully,
Okay.
yes. Yes, I would say so. Now, we're not looking, you brought up, kind of reminded me on a point, we're not looking to get rid of any of our drivers. We appreciate all of our drivers. But there's times like, I know Craig has been driving a lot and trying to find subs, so that might help with that situation.
And that's where I was going. Yeah, like, we're struggling daily with 20. So is a magic number for us like 15? It's something we can probably sustainably do. I know we have openings. I don't want to mean we're getting rid of anyone, but just, with illnesses and things that change. So that's where I was going. Thanks.
I got you, yep.
And I would just, maybe because I've been in this situation before, but you do have some littles that live within the bus boundaries whose parents can't take them to school now,
Right.
let alone at 8:45 or 8:35. So, I mean, there may need to be some exceptions made or looked at on how we could get them to school,
Right.
So these route number of buses needed may go up some, because we may have to expand that. Because some of those children, I mean, you live within so much distance from the school, but you have to cross railroad tracks, and you have to cross, Odell Street. I mean, you can't ask a kid to do that.
Yeah, I agree
can.
with you. I agree with you. And one of the things that why we were having the high school, I just want to start first, is because of our after-school activities. Our high schoolers are busier with the activities, and I'm afraid if we start bumping those back, well, we drive almost halfway across the state in our conference right now. How far, does that put that back, the ball games? So, or they're gonna be missing a lot of instructional time, which we don't want that either. So there are some things, and Matt, that's a great point. We'll just have to keep working through it and get a lot of feedback in.
So, something I noticed on that is that you don't have, the fifth grade center on here.
Correct. We did not add that in.
So that's not Marshall TL?
No.
Okay,
No.
that is the therapeutic
That
learning.
is, like I said, that Marshall TL is still the TLC building, which
Okay.
will actually run on the high school schedule.
Okay.
So that is, we just didn't bump that back. He left it normal like it is. The
Okay.
fifth grade center is not on here. We're trying to figure that out.
All right.
Any other questions? All right. So quick facility report. Just go through the stuff, some of the big happenings. We did get the high school staff bathroom done. It was updated to be ADA compliant, so that was a good thing done. The compressor for one of the units at Benton has finally came in. It will be installed at the end of this week. We've been waiting for that one for a long time. So just, they keep telling me supply chain. All the yearly boiler inspections have been completed throughout the district, so appreciate our maintenance people getting all that taken care of. The elevator project behind you, that is finally all wrapped up and inspected. All elevators have passed inspection in the district now and are functioning. We've been working on a new inventory system for the district, which we'll be rolling out. Troy's been a big part of that, Troy Blue, helping get that set up, and we'll be rolling that out throughout the district this spring and getting that updated with our teachers and our administration. So that'll be a good thing for the district. And then one of the big things is lead water testing. There was legislation that came out last year that districts need to be testing for that, so we got some of our guys some lead water training to go ahead and start doing that. Still working through some of that process and how we want to do it and do it economically, but it would be something that we are going to have to do. Okay, and then I added in here the Beaker trailer deck accident that we had last Saturday night. So we are working with the insurance company to get that claim all fixed, but I do want to thank JL Waters and helpers and our maintenance crew for getting that debris cleaned up so quickly on Sunday morning, so the kids, we could get school going on Monday.
Thank you, JL.
Yeah. Speaking of that too, I also want to thank, since I'm up here, Smith's Handyman Service. They were nice enough to come in the fall, and they painted a lot of the curbing around the high school and the curbing in central office. So that it looked a lot nicer once they got that done, and they did that for free and donated their time, so we appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Just some real quick, some of the committees. We did get a wellness committee going. Audrey Ming is chairing the wellness committee, so she is doing an amazing job, and she has kind of went back and did some changes and set that up, and they're going to start meeting, and I have all faith in her that she's going to really do a good job. We also are getting a classified staff committee. They had one. I'm trying to kind of revamp it a little bit, so getting that set up and representation from all our buildings throughout the district. And I want to do that. I mean, we want all of our employees to have a voice, and they can do that through this committee members. So, does anybody have any questions on that report? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rinke. Moving on to old business, the second reading of the transportation time staggered. You just had those kind of outlined before you. Again, that is still a work in progress, of course. And then the tuition reimbursement, that is kind of still ongoing, and information that you received as well, so.
I have some staff data on that if you'd like to hear it really quick for the record.
Yes, sir.
So went back to the climate and culture survey on the tuition reimbursement, and 74% of our staff reported that they would be in support of it in some capacity. 55.4% were a strong yes, and 19% were a maybe. They kind of wanted to know the details of that. Still a work in progress, but I believe that's something I really believe we'll be bringing to the board for action before we get to this end of this spring semester. And I did have a meeting with Missouri Valley and some of its representatives 2 weeks ago, and we are discussing a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, that I hope to bring to the Board of Education. That memorandum of understanding being that we would work with them for their graduates to student teach in our building, and for them to offer a Drive 65 program that they already basically offer, but we would put it into something we could both advertise for recruitment, and that would offer tuition discounts for our students to come to Missouri Valley for education, post-secondary, and a lot of other, I think, opportunities for our school systems and organizations to work together. And I would, if we get that accomplished and agreed upon and board approved, I would probably tie that into the tuition reimbursement and try to make that a consideration in the reimbursement program that people could apply for, so that the wheels are turning, and I hope to get something to the board and to the teachers, and I think it would be a great recruitment tool and good for everybody in our community. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pett. Moving on to new business, underneath item 8A, the approval of the purchase of Great Circle for $1 million even. This is an action item for us this evening. We've talked about this back and forth. We've had some community feedback about it. This would house our pre-K program. It will be tied to some title funds, title money, other monies that we will be able to garner by increasing student numbers going out that way. It is for starting for us to be able to have school in it in the fall, to be able to start moving into that space and doing some renovations, which there is some other money set aside for already, just kind of setting the floor for the whole thought process and looking into it as well. We'd be moving out of the Hoot House, moving out of the Tudor House, relocating out of central office, combining all of our central office staff in one location, which would help with district communication, I believe, at a higher level of being able to have collaborative work by being in the same area, and reduce roofs that we have to maintain, and move into a roof that is well maintained, as we kind of heard from Aaron through Insight and kind of looking through that building lastly. So
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase.
Second.
is there any further discussion than we've had?
Yes, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
In reading through the last contract, it said there are some closing costs that we have to pay too, so that motion should be the $1 million plus whatever closing costs that we have to pay.
Yeah, there will be a split of closing costs. It's,
It's not much, it's part of the title insurance, it's just piddling little
Very-
things, but
Very, very good point. So I guess if, Matt, you'd be willing to amend to the $1 million plus split that we would have to have there?
Million plus closing?
I guess. I mean, I thought that was pretty much common knowledge that you have to pay closing costs when you buy something, but yeah, that's fine. $1 million plus whatever
Yeah.
minimal
Second.
charge that will be.
Brad is the second. Do you feel?
Yes.
There we go.
Is there any more discussion or questions?
Crap, but make sure you point that out.
All those in favor of the purchase of the Great Circle property for $1 million to come to the district, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Ellen, as well. Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Next, we're going to look at the approval of the exit survey for spring data collection. This is something that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. We want to know why our staff are leaving as a board and as an administration as well. That was also in your packet. It was a 10 to 12 question survey. It also includes an exit meeting that you can have with a variety number of individuals at the end of it as well, from superintendent down to building level staff or initial supervisors. So
Is this part of policy somehow? I don't understand why we're voting on it. I'm happy to vote for it, but I didn't know if there was some other policy connected to it.
in the governance plan, it has a January requirement that I report to you the results of it. And so in
Got
lieu
it.
of results this year, it would be just that we do have it and we will start using it with our HR changes.
So governance plan, not a specific policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it. Cool.
I'll make a motion, we approve the exit survey.
Second.
all those in favor of the exit survey, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining?
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Aye.
Oh, we were waiting for Ellen.
Second.
That's what that dramatic pause was there for.
I got it.
Sorry.
Okay,
Thank, you're fine, Ellen.
To take it off mute.
my bad.
Thank you.
You're okay.
I'll second that. Aaron.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session pursuant to legal actions, hiring, firing, disciplining, preparation of negotiations with employee groups, individual personnel records, confidential or privileged communications with auditor. All those in favor, please say aye, and then I will follow with a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Will-
Aye.
There we go.
Ellen, Aaron.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Thank you all. You put a Post-it note on there. I must have